Hey guys, what's up? Christy Lee here, and welcome to Doug's Cars.
Well, hey y'all, welcome back to Doug's Cars. I just had to use that intro one more time. I mean, it's the top 10 year in review for Doug's Cars, and well, Christy Lee was part of my year, and man, that was fun meeting her, and I'm glad she did that. And I'm not going to overuse it because I don't want to get, you know, a lawsuit from a bunch of people in Detroit, but that's okay. So I actually have a list here on my phone of the top 10 videos of the year. I had to write them down, of course, because I had to look them up. You know, there's some on there that I didn't expect to be on there, and there's some on there that honestly I knew were going to be on there, and there's some on there that you may not think should be on there, and there's some on there that I think should be on there but aren't. That's how it goes. I mean, YouTube algorithm, very difficult to figure out. It really is. And let me find my app here. There we go, perfect. So I know the first video is probably, the number one video is probably not going to be a surprise, but some of the other ones I was really shocked by. The number 10 video was the 57 Ford Thunderbird. I was so happy to be able to drive that car. It really was cool, and I had never driven that before. That was my dad's dream car when he was in high school, and you know, it drove really well. You know, it sold recently on Bring a Trailer for, I guess, kind of almost a disappointing amount, like under $40,000 significantly. And I know that we were hoping for more, but it really was a pristine car, and people were asking me questions because my video is linked to the Bring a Trailer ad, and they just were ones I couldn't answer about the restoration. I didn't have knowledge of that. I just looked at it and drove it, and I'm by no means a Tri-5 Ford Thunderbird. You know, I'm an enthusiast. I'm not an expert in those kinds of things. Ask me about my my Land Rover right here. By the way, I'd like to point out that I'm sitting on the beach. It's New Year's Eve, and my trusty Luna Rover is here. This came out of 2020 though, so this is not part of Best of 2021. But yeah, that car was just awesome. I mean, white with like a salmon interior. So that wasn't really shocking. What was a little more shocking was number 9, my i3 Must Go. That car was, that was tough to let go, because, you know, this year has been one of incredible change, I think, for everybody, but for me especially in relation to my cars. Like, I started this year with 2 modern BMWs, an M4, which I sold on Cars and Bids, which was an awesome experience, and an i3, which I sold to Carvana, which was also a fantastic experience. You know, that car would be really fun down here on the beach, but, I mean, not on the beach, but in the town. But it would have just been a nightmare to get here because you couldn't drive it here because the range was like 60 miles. So it would have had to been shipped. You know, with car prices being the way they are, I let it go. And that video was short and sweet, a little bittersweet at the end, but, you know, I explained why. And so that one I was a little shocked because it wasn't my best work for sure, but you know, I get a little teary at the end, so maybe that had something to do with it. And the number 8 was the Daytona Turkey Run. So after I'd already moved to Florida, which was the other big thing that really happened this year, was I moved from Virginia, where I lived for 27 years, to Amelia Island, Florida, home of the Amelia Concours, and more about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, that was fun. So the weekend of Thanksgiving, they have a huge car show at the infield at Daytona, which is where I met Christy Lee. So that was absolutely a blast. I mean, literally tens of thousands of cars, and absolutely worth going. I will go again next year. I will go every year that I live nearby. It's 2 hours away, but still, it was absolutely worth going to. I went to a Jeep festival there earlier this year, so I already knew what to expect. But this was multiples of that, 4 or 5 times bigger. So that was not surprising, seeing as how Christy Lee was also making a cameo in that video, and she's very famous in the car scene, of course. After that, we've got number 7, which was my old Range Rover Classic, the original, one of the original 3 that came out of the field behind that storage unit back in 2019 that Addicted Motors and RVA Rover and I, obviously Sports Car Workshops helped get out of that field and get running again. And yeah, when I got rid of it and I got the LR3, the guy who ended up with it by hand restored this vehicle to what I wanted it to be. I just didn't have the time, the garage with a lift, or the money to do it to that level. And so I got to see him at Cars and Coffee back in the fall, and back on Halloween we met up and he gave me the keys, he and his wife. They went for a walk for about an hour and I got to play with it for an hour, and it was awesome. So that video obviously did well, because that was bringing full circle from getting that Range Rover out of that field with my shaky cam that I had back in the day, almost 3 years ago now, to, you know, being able to drive it when it didn't have a terrible exhaust leak. So that obviously was going to do well. Range Rover stuff pretty much always does, and that's what got me kind of started here. In that reign, the next best was number 6. First time driving a series Landy. RVA Rover got an X MOD 109, I believe, 1980 Series 3 Land Rover, and I just never had driven one before. I didn't know anybody who had one, and they're not that common here. I realize in the UK you probably stumble over one in every hedgerow, but in the US they're becoming more common, but they weren't sold here. They didn't sell Land Rovers in the US from like 73 to 87, and that was just the Range Rover. They didn't sell the Defenders here until 93 or 4, I forget. I think it's 93 when they did the long wheel, the 110 for 1 year only. So they were unobtainium, so I never drove one. And those D90s that are NAS spec are worth $100,000. So this thing was great. I was able to drive it. I had a little fun with the shifter.
2,000 years later.
I had some issues with the shifter, but you know, growing pains. I'd never driven one before. I didn't know the parking brake was on. That was a fun time. Well, now we're getting into, you know, the top 5, the ones that you're really here for. Not surprisingly, a lot of my year has involved my Lincoln Town Car. And you're right, number 5 is me actually reviewing that Lincoln back in the spring. Some family friends had 2 Lincolns. One was a town car, which is now mine, and a Mark LT, and I was able to review both in the same day, so I called it Lincoln Week. And I didn't think they would be received that well, and those videos both did extraordinarily well, and I really liked that town car, and I was able to make a deal for it because they were both up for sale. So, not surprisingly, number 5 is me reviewing a town car. Number 4, now this one, not a surprise, although I thought it would be higher, is me driving the Twin Star, the Mosler Cadillac Eldorado with 2 engines, which was just amazing. This person driving next to me is driving past where they're supposed to be, so that's interesting. Oh, they're from Washington State, so they can't read signs, I guess. The Twin Star was just incredible. I asked forever to be able to drive this thing, and finally, the day before I moved to Florida, I had 1 camera with me and half a battery left, and I was able to spend about 40 minutes with this thing. It's insane and it's awesome, and if you haven't seen this video, you need to check it out because it is really, really, really worth it. But that's in 4th place, not 1st, 4th. That one's a shocker, because the other Mazda I drove this year, the Consigliere, which is the one that Doug DeMuro also drove, isn't even on the list. It's not too far off from it, but it's not on it at all. Now number 3, also not a shocker. We're back to the Lincoln Town Car again. When I sold my BMW M4, which was, you know, on Cars and Bids, it was, I got a pretty good price for it, I thought. Other people disagreed, but it doesn't matter because it was my car. One of the things I purchased with the money I made after selling that car was I needed a long distance car, hence the town car. So I traded I sold my M4 for a Lincoln Town Car. while maybe a clickbaity title isn't wrong, I did. So that's number 4 here on the list. Number 3. Now we're down to the top 2. One you might have already figured out because I mentioned it a moment ago, and the other one has to do with where I am. So number 2 is my review of the Amelia Concours in 2021, which was in May this year. Normally it's in March. It will be in March this coming year. I will be working it. There will be videos. Stay tuned. However, because it was in May, it was really, really hot that day, and the whole weekend really. But that weekend was amazing. On Saturday they have cars and coffee out at the Concours. All of the huge YouTubers were staying at the same hotel that we were staying at, and I won't give that one away in case they stay there again. They were put up by the Concours, so they didn't really have a choice. And I don't want people showing up, bothering them. That's not, if they figure out where they are, that's one thing, but I'm not gonna say. But I mean, you go down to breakfast and you're standing next to Hoovie, whom I already knew, who's getting eggs. Sam Crack's over there tinkering with that E39 BMW he gave away while he was here. Ed Bolian fires up his LP 640 at 5 in the morning, waking up the entire hotel. Now, we weren't mad because it sounded amazing, but it was loud. So that was a great weekend. Anyway, the Concours was Sunday. That video did very well for me. You know, I tried to film the things that were interesting to me, but you know, there's only so many Duesenbergs you can fit into your video. It was a Porsche 959, which was my dream car when I was a kid. Ferrari F40, F50, all this stuff were there. What a fantastic event that was. It'll be totally different this coming year. But on to number 1, if you haven't figured it out, it is the Lincoln Mark LT pickup from the same family where I bought my town car. Oddly enough, one of the sons was able to buy it, and he now uses it and loves it. And yeah, these are both very low mile vehicles, garage kept. I realized the Mark LT is the 5.4 3-valve, which the car was there, who was also at Amelia. Says never to buy, but this was very well maintained, and it's not his primary vehicle. So if something happens, it's not the end of the world. So those are my videos, but what a year it's been. No more BMWs, at least for now. And I'm sitting on the beach on December 31st, not shivering in Virginia. Big deal. So I've been so happy to be able to bring all of this content to y'all this year, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already done so, and stay tuned for what's coming this next year. Next weekend, there's another Caffeine and Octane in Jacksonville. I went to the Brumos collection last week here in Jacksonville, but they don't allow filming. So you can take as many pictures as you want, but you can't bring a video camera in. I'm going to talk to them about that and mention that I'm a journalist, and maybe that'll help. Journalist. So it's been an amazing year. There have been a lot of challenges for everybody. I just wanted to highlight some of the good things, some of the good videos that I think. The one that really surprised me is the Volkswagen XL1 didn't make the top 10. For some reason, that just hasn't done very well. And you know, there's only been a few people who've ever even seen one of these, let alone driven it. And it's the same one that Doug DeMuro drove, for what that's worth. But you know, that experience was amazing, and I actually had behind-the-scenes information from Jim McGill, who drove it around Europe for Jeff Lane for months, because he had to put a certain number of kilometers on it in order to ship it from the UK, or the UK would have taxed it as a new car. All these things that DeMuro, he didn't have any of this information for his video, but I did. So I was hoping that one would have done better. If you haven't checked that one out, it is absolutely worth. I mean, I'm driving this little tiny 300 mile per gallon, or yeah, diesel hybrid Volkswagen in Nashville, on these beat up streets of Nashville. Like, I mean, it's just crazy. Gull wing doors. I mean, it's that and the Twin Star. Those were the highlights of the year, really. And the Twin Star made the list. The VW didn't. So that was surprising. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this year. There's another year of content coming from a new location, and you know, I figured I'd film out here on the beach, and then realized I didn't have my tripod with me, so you're stuck to the rear window of my hatch. So I'm staring up and I've got a crick in my neck, so I'm going to end this now. So please hit subscribe, and I will see y'all next year. Happy New Year.